Joining us this week in our In the Turn interview is 20-year-old licensed Top Fuel NHRA driver Cody Krohn, and Cody is a Inglewood, Florida resident now, born in, I believe, Columbia, Missouri, and got licensed in the NHRA at 18. Cody, welcome to the show. How are you tonight?
I'm doing all right. Thank you very much for having me. It's good to be here.
And, of course, this interview is presented by Sunnyline 7, who, of course, Shane and Anthony, good friends with the Krohn family, so happy to have them jump on board here tonight as well. Cody, first question I like to ask, how did you catch the racing bug?
I definitely caught it from my family. So my dad used to race when he was a little bit younger. He raced in the 80s and 90s. And I think before we even could discuss it, it was just a genetic thing at that point where it was always something that our family attracted to. So by the time I turned 8 and could get into a junior dragster, it was like that was the first option, and it definitely stuck from there on out.
So for those who, and again, you're the first drag racer we've had on the show, which is pretty cool. A couple of interesting Top Fuel facts, too. You guys go about 0 to 330 miles an hour in 3.8 seconds. Talk to us a little bit about how exhilarating that feeling is.
Yeah, well, the joke I usually make to people is that I just keep my eyes closed the whole time, so it's absolutely a rush. There's no good way to describe it. It's take about as fast as you think you can go and then double it. But just that sensation that you feel in your body from going from 0 to 330 in that time period, it's the G-forces. We pull around 5 Gs, and it's intense, but it's kind of addicting. It's definitely something that you can't get enough of.
When you get the green light, when it's time to go, I've always been curious what the throttle application is like. Is it foot to the floor immediately, or is it kind of a gradual push to get to where you need to go fast?
It's put it to the floor as fast as you can, as hard as you can, and hold it there. So a big part of our sport is the reaction time off the starting line. So we have a 4,000th tree. A 400 tree. So basically, the amber lights flash, and there's 0.4 of a second between the amber lights and the green light coming on, and that's your signal to go. So it's basically as fast as you can react. And from the time you see those ambers come on, you put your foot on the floor and let off the brake and hold it and keep the car in the groove as best as you can for those 3.8 seconds.
So talk to us a little bit about the 2024 season, what you've got scheduled, what you've already done, if you've done anything yet this season, when the season runs. Give us all those good details.
Yeah, so we're working with a new team this year for me as a driver. I'm racing for a team. It's Peyton Racing. They're out of Canada, actually, so it's a little bit of a culture mix there with a South Floridian mixing with some Canadians. But we've got a pretty good deal lined up where we're planning to run 6 national events this year. We've already ran our first down in Gainesville in March. And our next one, I will be loading up next Monday to head up to Charlotte for our 4-wide event.
Excellent. And is New England Dragway on the strip on the schedule this year?
It's a consideration. We're definitely still bobbling around a few ideas of where we would like our last 4 events to be. The ones that we're 100% going to will be out in Chicago. We'll be at St. Louis. And we're trying to fill in the blanks from there on out and seeing basically what makes the most sense for us to go to, because right now we're primarily privately funded. So we're waiting to figure out what kind of business partners we can bring in and which events they would like us to participate at for their businesses and operations.
Hey, Cody, this is Jim. Wow, I just want to kind of piggyback on what Ben was asking about taking off when that light turns green. 300 miles an hour in like 3 seconds, and what is it, 1,200 feet now or 1,400 feet?
No, so we're actually less than a quarter mile. We're down to 1,000-foot track.
Feet.
Just so
3 seconds, 300 miles per hour. Does the car want to stay straight, or does it want to kick out on you, all that power? I mean, what's it like trying to aim this thing?
So it's definitely crucial to have the car straight before you step on the gas, but they're real long, narrow cars, skinny front tires, real big back tires. So essentially the whole time the back of the car is trying to drive around the front of it. The back tires think the front wheels are in their way. So it's a handful staying ahead of the car. You can't react to what the car's doing. You have to be very proactive in driving it just to keep it straight, because it definitely has a mind of its own.
It's got to be incredible. I mean, I would imagine the old space shuttle launch. So you're probably feeling the type of G's that the astronauts were probably feeling at a space shuttle launch, correct?
Absolutely. I think we do pull a little bit more.
That's what I thought. I mean, I can only imagine they're computer controls, and they just got to sit and hang on till they get to space and go with throttle up about a minute or so in, and here you are. You got to aim this thing, and it can go real bad real quick. You don't have a lot of room to correct.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things. I know you guys are big NASCAR guys. That's one of the really cool things about our sport is that it's not. There's not really. You can't say, oh well, I got another lap, because it's. Most of our races are pairs, so you run against one other car per round.
Yep.
And you have a 3.8 second window to do the best you can, and you can't do it again. You have to be perfect every time. So, and as you said, there's definitely a huge margin for error when you're dealing with 11,000 horsepower and trying to apply it in 1,000 feet.
You've been licensed for the last 2 years. You got your Top Fuel license at 18. Tell us a little bit about that process and what goes into getting a license for NHRA.
Yeah, so NHRA is our sanctioning body, and there's a ton of classes that you can run in, and licenses are basically categorized based on wheelbase and elapsed time. So there's dragsters and there's funny cars and there's longer and shorter wheelbases and so on. I've primarily raced dragsters for all of my career, starting off in junior dragsters and moving up. And as I could age in, I could go into higher categories. So before I raced Top Fuel, I raced a category called Top Alcohol. And it's a lower category. It's injected nitro instead of supercharged nitro. And that was one of our building blocks. So basically, every category you go to get your license for, you're required to make 6 laps, a few partial laps and a few full laps under supervision of previously licensed drivers and track officials and NHRA officials, basically like judging your performance. And if they're willing to sign off on your license based on these runs, you can go ahead and submit it to NHRA to acquire that license. Cool.
How does a typical event work for those who might not understand drag racing as much? From my understanding, it's kind of bracket style. Fastest qualifier will face the least fastest or whoever. I don't know if there's cuts. From your perspective, or how could you explain how a typical NHRA event works?
Yeah, so our standard event, we usually race Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday and Saturday are qualifying. We typically get 3 or 4 qualifiers. And just like you said, we get qualified into a 16-car field. No matter how many cars show up, only 16 cars can qualify. And as you said, number 1 qualifier races the 16, number 2, 15, and so on. And that gets broken down into 4 elimination rounds, which are all run on our Sunday.
Yeah, Cody, Jim again, back to you're 20 years old, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So you're doing 300 miles an hour at 1,000 feet. I know 20-year-olds who don't have their driver's license yet. I mean, really, when I was a kid, everybody couldn't wait to get their driver's license back in the 80s when you were 15. The longest year of your life was till you were 16. You've already been racing, and you're 20 years old, and you're already in the top touring division of the NHRA. That's got to be, I mean, are any of your friends into the racing also? Or is it just... I mean, I know you came about your family. Did you grow up with a bunch of people that also liked racing, or?
Yeah, so basically I spent most of my weekends as a kid racing junior dragsters at the racetrack. I I don't know how to say that. I wasn't the most social person. I wasn't the kind of kid who would go out and go party or go hang out here or go hang out with those people. So for me, it's kind of been my life. When I'm not racing, I'm working. And with that all laying in, most of my friends and the people that I associate with are actually at the racetrack. So this NHRA, these NHRA events are basically like a huge family. So a lot of the people that travel to all the events, and those are the people you surround yourself with. And it's great because doing that, you surround yourself with a bunch of like-minded people.
Sure.
These are all people who love the same sport as you, so you get to really build that bond there.
Talk to us a little bit about your team. Obviously, that was a good little segue there to start talking about the folks that are at the track every week. But talk to us about the team, how many guys that you kind of work with week in and week out, and some of their different roles. Obviously, all motorsports kind of falls under the same umbrella, but educate us a little bit about what goes into your type of team.
Yeah, so like I said, we're working with a new team this year with Peyton Racing, and although we've only had one race with them, they're definitely already like family to us. So a regular NHRA team for a top fuel car will have between 10 and 15 guys, I'd say, working on the car. And that's simply because after every run, we rebuild the motor completely, so everyone has a super specific job. But as I said before, they have to be perfect every time. So you have a lot of trust in all the guys that are working on the car, and it's good to have a good bond with them. But we have, like I said, I think we have 14 guys that go to every single race. We have a crew chief who makes all the tuning calls. Basically, he's deciding everything that needs to be figured out, he's deciding. But every roll between bottom end and cylinder heads and clutch and back tires, and we have a car chief who really oversees operations, and it's organized chaos with all the guys and girls there. But it's a family at the end of the day, and everyone has a ton of faith in everyone that's there. So we bring about 15, and that pretty much covers all of our operations needed.
Has there been anyone you lined up against that you're like, I cannot believe I'm racing this guy? I know you beat Tony Stewart in a top alcohol, and that just came to my mind. And have you ever raced anyone else that you're like, wow, I cannot believe I get to race this guy or girl?
I think every person I've lined up against so far has been that way for me, just because I grew up watching all the guys I'm racing against now. I grew up watching them on TV as a little kid on Sunday sitting on the couch. So, but yeah, racing against Tony Stewart a ton in the alcohol ranks was very cool. I got to meet him at a more personal level than just a competitor, And
Tony's definitely aces for sure.
Yeah, I had the opportunity last year for our Pomona race. I wasn't racing in Pomona, California, but I actually flew out and worked on his crew for the weekend.
Cool.
And but yeah, all these guys that I've gotten to race against. I mean, in Gainesville, I got to run against Sean Langdon. I've got to line up against Justin Ashley a few times, and it's like these are the guys that, like I said, I grew up watching. These are like the idols that I've always had, and to go up there and line up against them has always been surreal to me.
So you mentioned earlier, too, in the interview that it seems like a lot of self-funding or brought money from the team you're working with. But are there any sponsors on the car that you want to thank for their efforts so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have Rhodes Race Cars. They're a fabrication and race car building shop. We have Billet Specialties and Coating Specialties. It's a wheel manufacturer and a powder coating shop out of Chicago. We have Fast Eddie Speedwear on the car. They're making all of our starting line shirts and our apparel. I mean, that in itself is a huge help for us. Quality Compressors and Ogilvy's Auto and Fleet, both helping us out for all of our events this year. And, of course, PDS and Peyton Racing just giving us the opportunity to be involved with them. So basically how this is working is my family and I have our racing operation under the name of CK Racing. That's how we brand everything. And we're merging this with Peyton Racing to kind of further our operation and expand what we have.
Excellent. And most important question, too, people want to learn more about your career. Do you get, I'm sure you get the socials and maybe a website, too, as well?
Absolutely. all socials between Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the website are all either at Cody Krohn Racing or CodyKrohnRacing.com. It's a little tricky. It's Cody, C-O-D-Y, Krohn, K-R-O-H-N, Racing. And everything that happens, whether it's at the racetrack, keeping updated during the races, or between races, what I'm doing in my daily life at home, working and whatnot, it all stays updated on there to kind of keep involved with everyone who supports me.
Excellent. We've been joined by 20-year-old licensed top fuel driver in the NHRA, Cody Krohn, here tonight in the middle of the show. Absolute pleasure to have you, and I'm going to keep an eye out. If you end up making your way up to New England this summer for the New England Nationals, I'm going to be in attendance.
Perfect. Thank you guys very much for having me.
Not a problem.
Cody.
Thank you,
Very
Cody.
welcome. Thank you.
Great to have Cody joining us.